All right. Hi.
What's up?
We're back for our almost weekly podcast. Thanks for giving us a week off. I was up in DC at a board meeting and so wasn't able to record last week, but we're back.
Oh,
Here we
I
are.
I gotta know how to go. I mean, how much of it is secretive?
It was really exciting. Uh they are working on some new initiatives. So I was at a Yoga Alliance board meeting and they're working on some new initiatives with providing separating out credentialing from membership. And their membership program's pretty darn exciting, I have to say. So there's people who perhaps need credentialing to teach, right? Credentialing's important. It's what, um, in the world, make sure that we have safe, trained yoga teachers, which is really important. Um, but credentialing isn't everything. And Yoga Alliance realizes that it really wants to mean more to people than just the people who you have to you know,
Yeah,
do the credentialing with. And so they really want to provide more with the membership and they have a lot of resources, an incredible team. Um, it's pretty exciting. One of the things that they're going to do, I'm just going to read you some of the stuff just because it's exciting.
yeah.
Uh, they gave me these cute little, if you're on video, you're going to see these nice little cards that they provided for me.
Ooh,
Not just me, but everybody. And I wanted these because I can take them around to yoga studios and kind of share what's going on. So it's cool. I get to share here too. So it says provider membership, professional development courses, certificates um, via and certificate programs via learning management systems.
mm,
Then global and regional community gatherings, both online and in person. That's what they're working towards. Business tools to help small businesses and independent teachers thrive. I think a lot about you when I'm in these meetings
yeah,
and what it feels like for you to be an independent yoga teacher and the resources that could really support you and provide you with tools that would,
yeah.
make you more successful and easier to be able to teach. So that's a provider membership. We also have a practitioner membership, which connects practitioners to teachers and studios aligned with their needs. It will have resources to dismantle stereotypes and increase access, and opens doors to diverse traditions, practices, and teachers. That is just like the tip of the
Mhm.
iceberg. They've done a whole new rebranding with the tagline "More Yoga, Better World," which I freaking love. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, let's do it. And really trying to figure out, how advocacy, resources, community, credentials, and education can all really work together with Yoga Alliance so that we're really using our resources to serve the yoga community at large. So it was an exciting, really, really fun week. Long conversations with really in-depth discussions with incredibly brilliant people. If you want to check it out, you can go to the Yoga Alliance webpage, or you can just Google Yoga Alliance board and go read up on some of our board members. I feel very humble to be in the presence of these really cool people who are doing
mhm,
amazing things in the world and getting to talk about yoga with them. And then at the end, it was really fun. I got to perform. Um, our board chair is leaving. And so we're going to have a new board chair. This was her last official meeting, and then she'll be gone at the end of the year, and we'll get a new board chair. And so they had purchased her this beautiful Hanuman statue to take with her because she really is such the embodiment of the energy of Hanuman, who is, for those of you who don't know, the Ramayana. Uh, Hanuman was a monkey who also happened to be Rama's greatest devotee. And actually, um, the cool thing about Rama and Hanuman was able to access greater powers than Rama had himself because of his faith in Rama. And so it was almost like he transcended the guru with his faith and with his, belief in the guru. He became greater than the guru itself in the sense that he was able to do things that even Rama couldn't, which I think is such an amazing story. So we did this statue, and then so we ended out the entire board meeting with the puja to this new statue, which I got to lead, which was really fun and meaningful and beautiful and just really, yeah, really special. So
Mm.
it's a great week. So thank you all for giving me the week off to go and represent and be immersed in the yumminess of yoga.
My goodness. That's really nice to hear. I'm so glad that, like, someone like you is there as well, and, like, especially someone who, isn't afraid to, like, voice their opinion, like, I think you
No, I
know?
am not.
You know you are not, and I think that,
My
like
voice was very heard this week. Mhm.
and I don't know, I just feel so lucky. Um,
Yeah, and I
just
have
like
deep respect for Shannon Roche, who's the CEO right now. She's extraordinary. She's such a powerhouse and she's amazing. And really, we are very fortunate to have found her and for her to lead this organization. So I just want to give shout outs to Shannon too. She is just, whew, love that
can
woman.
you tell me more about her? I think so often, like, me, all just, one of these independent yoga instructors, like, we're so high up from the top, to use a not
Yeah.
the best word, but a word that resonates. Like, y'all are this is the certification board, this is yeah. So I think as you grow older, you realize, like, how complicated our motivations are, like, your own in motivation, all the motivations, and I think, like, it would be cool, like, at least with that person or if anybody that you feel like you don't even have to name drop them if you don't want to, but just kind of, like, share some of the motivations or some of what you've seen in those experiences that maybe transcend, like, the policies or or whatever, like, are they really faithful people, right? Do they act do they actually
Mhm.
have a sadhana? Do they actually, live, whoever, in a way that you respect and you just said it, but, like, can you, like, kind of elaborate what that means?
Yeah, I think one of the exciting things about the board is definitely made up of people of different traditions. So obviously I come from Integral Yoga. We've got people that come from Kriya Yoga and Self Realization Fellowship. We have people that come from, um, there's people from Shivanata's lineage. There's people who, one of the people on the board founded the Hanuman Festival, which was a really extraordinary yoga event. There's a lot of us on the board, including people from different traditions who grew up, either Hindu or Sikh or, you know, yoga was built into their family,
Mm,
um, firsthand, not Western appropriated yoga of a sort, but like really traditional, your grandma doing puja every day. And so I think a lot of that is really represented. And I think that Yoga Alliance has really tried to make sure that we're leaning into that. They've worked hard over the last like 10 years, particularly to change the narrative, uh, elect a new strong board who's really dedicated not only to these values, but also really dedicated to DEIAB. And for those of you who don't know, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging. And so we have a lot of really robust conversations about that and how we can really stand behind that and provide more opportunities for people who maybe are strategically disadvantaged in this country and around the world. So I think it's both. I think it's like there's a lot of like social justice work that's being done at that board, but also a lot of like, but let's remember what we're here for because ultimately it is a spiritual thing. But we also, we can't always just lean into the spiritual when you're trying to get yoga into more traditional spaces. So, really, I think that the way that Shannon leads her team and the way that she's balancing that out, because she really does have so much respect for those of us who come from those traditions, she may not be as deeply rooted in those traditions as we have been.
mm,
But I never get the feeling from her that she does not have 100% respect for that and really honors it herself and then really translates that into what she provides for the team and then also linking that in a way that is really important because we know that there's not enough people of color still at the big fronts of the rooms. Um, there's not enough representation uh, from all different peoples. in the
Yeah.
yoga world. It's still the Western yoga movement is still very much dominated by many white male teachers, many male teachers of color at the guru level, but also a lot of white women. And making sure that we are having that diversity is really important. And so we also have a beautifully diverse board that reflects that. And also, she has a beautifully diverse team. And I really do encourage everybody to go on the website. The website's really awesome. It's got a lot of information. It's beautiful. They just did the biggest update they've done in 10 years. And so it's much more easy to navigate and understand the different aspects of what there are to offer um, through Yoga Alliance. And so I think it's really an exciting time. If you are not engaging with them as a yoga teacher or even a yoga practitioner, now might be a good time for you to go check it out again and see what they have to offer. If you are engaging with them and you are a member, I also encourage you to go check it out because we really recognize that the members are not aware of all the services that are offered to them, and that's an issue that sometimes comes up, that we get to make sure that the members know all the fantastic things that Yoga Alliance offers them that we haven't maybe like been as good at communicating. So I just, yeah, as a board member, I want to say I'm really proud of the work that's being done and really proud of the team and really inspired by uh, the CEO and the incredible team she's created, and also the chair and the previous board members who have worked really hard to create a equitable, passionate, deeply spiritually rooted, as well as um, more what's the word I'm looking for? Um, m- People who maybe don't need
Yeah.
this are not as comfortable with the spiritual side of it. So there's
Yeah.
honoring both of it because we do recognize that the spiritual part is not going to resonate with everyone, and that shouldn't exclude you from yoga.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. I, I really appreciate that. I think so. I was thinking about what to talk about, and I generally have a theme of like honoring the time of the year and what energies are more present at that time of the year. And so I
Mm,
kind of shifted into Scorpio, and Scorpio represents many, many things. It's like considered the most complicated of the signs, um, because it represents like those desires that are innate.
mhm,
And what I love about the Yamas and the like first of all, in the story of Scorpio, like the Alice Bailey 12 steps of Hercules, when he runs across like the nine-headed serpent of Scorpio, or in Scorpio, it has like nine different desires, and it's like money, sex, like security, like these types of things. And it's so interesting how like the Yamas and the Yamas, like it's almost like adequately address all of them. Like we have an innate desire to be powerful and to be influential in what we think we need to influence, but that can lead to us to become violent, for example. Money, greed, and all these different things. And then um so just on my mind has been like, well, what are the desires that you have that are like driving you? Like, and not to view those desires like from an object of like judgment, but just like these are the things like. And I found like in today's world, and why like I've landed on yoga as like the school of thought that I'd like to invest most of my attention to, is that like it sort of addresses everything. It doesn't say some desires. And when I mean desires, I mean desire categories. Like, if you have the desire to be dominant, that isn't necessarily inherently negative, but it's how you actualize that, right? If you're a parent, well, you have to, or a dog owner, right? You have to have some level of dominance over this in this context. It's actually um for your own benefit. So anyways, then I started thinking about like, well, sometimes your desires lead you to do things that you consider shameful, and almost like oftentimes the most like shameful, self-loathing things that you regret the most or sort of used to succumbing to some sort of desire that you had. And I guess a better phrase that I want to do it is you can have like a desire and it can be like selfish or selfless, right? Like you can want to make love, but you can do that selfishly or selflessly. And yoga is sort of that emphasis on like, how do you do these things selflessly? So all that's to say, like, we tend to fear our desires. We tend to fear things that we don't really like fully understand where they come from, how they came to be. And I think like with yoga, there's a huge fear element to like that. I think that people who are yogis or grew up in the East might not even be aware of. Like specifically, like my case is the Black community. I'm thinking of my grandma when I think like a Baptist, devout Baptist woman. Then I'm thinking of Safa's family, who's like, like very like especially her father, very Muslim, very like very strict. Doesn't even they might not necessarily know the books back and forth, but they feel that conviction and they are very serious about it. And I think like often, and I think that oftentimes in our world, like most people, like unless you're atheist, you probably identify with something like, oh, I'm kind of Christian, or like I'm Jewish but not practice Christian but not practicing, and oftentimes like a lot of the times when people hear specific things about yoga spiritually, it's like blasphemous or idol worship or polygamous or these not polygamous, polyamory or polytheism, whatever it is. I'm keep messing up the words. I've been
All the
hearing poly.
polys.
I've been hearing poly so much. First of all, I know a lot of poly people, and then I'm like thinking like but anyway, so but just like that, like they can't like engage with it because they feel like, well, they heard at the beginning of this conversation, oh, Hanuman, who's Hanuman? What's that? That's not, or who's Lord Rama, like for example. And I don't know. I've been really struggling with not struggling actually. Like I feel like I've been feeling like really empowered to like address those things like directly and being like, even when I think about my own like my own like reasons why it's like, oh my goodness, some of these things are like Scorpio energy. Like I don't want to have an arch back in front of another guy, like types of things. So even some people might be limited to do the physical postures because, they're just too macho or whatever. Um, so oftentimes, like I think, like a lot of the times, the planning to reach out to the DEI groups needs to be done from folks that are in it because a lot
Mhm.
of times,
Yeah,
like we know what Nana said behind white people's back. We know what was said behind your back, so we can
yeah.
address it. And I think like so I know like I mean actually I even had a conversation with a woman the other day. Like she actually said to me, not the other day, this was like a year or two ago, but she said something where she was like, um, you have to be careful about what you listen to, what you consume, what you consider to be godly or not, what you consider to be like what you consider to be healthy or not, what you consider to be
Hmm.
holy or not. Like she's coming from a Christian background.
Mhm.
She was almost like saying how you can almost and I'm just echoing this because I know a lot of people think like this, is that like, you can, just because someone says that's God doesn't mean that's God. Just because someone says that or that's godly or holy or spiritual, like they might think it's spiritual. So what I've been listening to, like, was why it's front and center of my mind. And it's a Scorpio energy, like, is like questioning, the deep questioning, like, I don't trust you. Like, you're just like me.
Mhm.
You're saying things like Swami Satchidananda. You're just saying your person is like me. How do I know that these people say this about you, but how can I
Yeah.
know? And I have friends that are heavy Scorpio energy, and they pushed me all my life on my own faith and be like, well, I mean, so you're telling me Gandhi can't go to heaven? Or these people because they didn't profess that Jesus Christ is their Lord and Savior, for example. So I've been like thinking about like, what are the real constraints? Like what like to that inclusion, right? Like, and rather than like, and I think like, sometimes and I almost want to say this to some people, like some careers don't have black folk in them because we don't believe that they're like holy careers. Or like if you're from a spiritual family, like a lot of people are, we're like, you can't do that. Like you would be You would be harming
Yeah,
your own people if you did that job, or you
it's
can't do this,
interesting.
and
Yeah.
so anyway, so I wanna kinda, like
Can you would you give some examples of that? Because I think that's an interesting thing that is part of the discussion that a lot of people don't get to hear the perspective about. So just give us some examples of what that might look like.
what should I could do political and spiritual, which one would you I could do both, which one would
Both. Please share both. I mean, I
okay,
think
yeah,
the more that we discuss this and the more we can be transparent about where we're coming from, then the more likely we are to find ways to
absolutely.
reach
Yeah,
each other.
absolutely. I actually heard something that was really dope earlier today. It was like, you're not I'm modifying a little bit, but it's like, you don't necessarily need to care what people think about your group or your whatever, but you should know. Because because then it tempers how you speak when you operate with those people, like, "Yeah, no, you can be this way and be it defiantly." So I think that, like, Nana was born in 1939, my mom's mom
Okay.
in Raleigh, North Carolina, and my dad was born in 1944 in Hampton, Virginia, both in the South, and they both, like, grew up, like, through their into their adulthood, like, in certain areas with, like, legal segregation and all these sorts of things, and so I think we should start with that. I think we should even say, like, you know, even here I don't know if you've heard stuff like this, but it's like, at the time that Martin Luther King made his speech, not all black people were in unison, because a lot of black people even today you hear it, they feel a lot of trauma towards white people. They don't trust them. So they would be like, "What," like, this is a really big one, but I think that, like, we need to be realistic about it, because, like, the OGs, they're kinda like, "You guys are kids, we just want you to be kids and enjoy your childhood." But, then you have your uncles here and there, your aunts here and there that kinda slip things out in conversation, so it's like, if you're my grandfather, my father's father with 9 boys, 9 black men that you wanna raise as strong black men that know their history and know that they are not in alignment with the state, like, for example, like, these types of things,
Yeah.
like, you're not gonna trust a white school, because then you're gonna be like, "Well, the principal is gonna teach us that we actually our schools were lower quality, and that's why the white man had to save us. He had to come into the Bronx and give us funding because we couldn't educate our own, at the same time the Black Panther Party existed." You see the contradiction, like, what
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
that type of energy. So what
It's
I wanna
insulting. It's
Yeah,
insulting, Quentin, the way that and we look at it as from a white perspective, we're always like, "Oh, we're helping."
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
did we even ask for your help?
We just wanted freedom and the ability to do our own thing. It was like, stop down pressing was the problem. Stop creating laws. Stop redlining in the place. You tell us to move to Chicago and then you redline. Like, like, what is, to the northern cities, and then all of a sudden it's like, so all I'm saying is, we should start with that, like, there is still a physical based racial divide in this country that goes in every direction, that is realistic, and I think, like, you'll see I don't know if you heard about this young white kid named Nick Fuentes, but he's very much embodies his energy on the white side. He turned 18 when Donald Trump got elected president, and he very much embodies a world that a lot of the younglings live in, which is, like, kinda heartbreaking in a way, which I didn't grow up in, like, I grew up in the like, I'm a '90s baby, like, kumbaya type energy, but if you're born like, if you came to adolescence post-Obama age, like, no, there's white men, they're the problem, cis white men are downstream of the imperialists, for example.
Mhm.
Um, and then, and then obviously, like, BIPOC, right? There's black, and then there's, Indian, or anybody that's of color that's from a different place. Like, it's us versus them type energy. And so what happens when
You
you
know,
grow up,
lumping everybody into this
which
thing,
is so
BIPOC.
crazy, like, when you grow up where we
There's
grew up.
white people and then there's BIPOC.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's it, and it's like BIPOC and their white allies, and it's everybody else, and it's like, this is not the way this is not the way, bro, like, this is but you see it all
No.
the time where, and all I'm saying this is because, like, I've had uncles come to me and say, "White people aren't even from this planet, like, they're so brutal, like, they can't be from here." Then I've had my father,
Wow, yeah.
because of the history of the last
I
500
hear
years,
that.
but then I have my father, who this is my younger uncle, like, grew up in the Bronx, grew up like under the influence of like the five percenters and like more of the black nationalists up there. But then I have like my father, total Libra energy. Actually, his birthday was October 22nd, so Libra and Scorpio cusp.
Mm.
Um, he would have been 81, but he was always like equally loving to everybody. Like he never mentioned race at all. So I think like when you grow up in the black community, you realize that there's this wide spectrum, for example, of people that do not want to integrate, like or really feel like, you know, until reparations come or until there's like six black presidents in a row, like, all right, we're not even. Like that's type energy. Then there's other folks that are, you know, like my dad, I feel like he was in the middle. And then you could say there's like the quote unquote like Uncle Toms or like the folks that are like self-loathing black folk that really don't that feel ashamed that they were born black and are trying to make up for it. So I think
Mm.
there's kind of like this whole spectrum, and I would even say that's probably true with any ethnicity, and that relate like that has that sort of dichotomy with relationship to the Europeans. But
Well, it's insulting, I think, also to assume that everybody, because of the color of their skin, is in agreement with each other.
oh yeah, I mean, or
Gross,
that they
right?
have to, or that they
Yeah,
have to, or that like
yeah.
if Candace Owens and Kanye West don't agree with like Michelle Obama and Jay-Z, then those people aren't as black because they don't agree politically. But like when you grow up, like that's what people on the outside say. Like to me, like when you grow up in a large black family, like no, we're all like we all got called names together, the conservative one and the super liberal one. Like it didn't make a difference. Like we all got our card, we all got certain things that happen to us independent of our like thoughts. It's like that's not what unifies us. It's like sort of that story. So I've been thinking about that a lot, how like I'll use that as like a more like physical political example, like, all black folk, all BIPOC folk should be Democrats, for example. That's a really like that's a hot topic one. But if you grow up like me, whose dad was born in 1944, whose grandparents would have all been Republicans because it wasn't until JFK in the late 60s went against his party to then side with blacks, like you don't have that same point of view. You can see it in your own family, like, oh, there is this transition. And
Mm.
for black folk, it's just like we just care about the black voting bloc. But then you have today, like folks like Nick Fuentes that say, you see, there's a black voting bloc. There's a black agenda, right? Like by that thought process. If you think we all should be in the same political party, then there's a colored people agenda. And you see how it just sets the way for like this is not the like it sets the way for logical framing in a prejudiced way that can enforce it. And I'm not even saying it's prejudice like you hate me, but you're just like using that rather than seeing the common humanality. Because it's like if you ask yourself if there were no quote unquote BIPOC in this dichotomy, how would just whites vote? Well, and then you go, wait, our political aspirations are not being accomplished
Right.
because we have these people here. And you can just see how that causes so much conflict. And so
Yeah.
I see that same thing spiritually. I was actually imagining myself like imagine if I just woke up tomorrow in Af, you know Afghanistan or in Iraq or somewhere like say a capital Muslim country where everybody has to call to prayer. And imagine if like I'm sitting here in this just dressing like I got teleported there and it's time to pray and I'm standing up not praying. Like people are gonna just be like, "What's going on with that guy? Like, what's going on with him? Like, don't you know that our survival is based on us all agreeing essentially and on us all acting the same." So I think like when we do yoga, like we got to be realistic about like in the modern context in a lot of people's minds, and especially with there's so much like sometimes racial and religious tension, even though we're trying to transmute it, it can still be seen like that way as like, no, like like this is not like sanctioned. So, um, we can go into how I would address that, but like part of like that's like some part of the issue that we have is that like we just don't know the secrets that we say behind people's backs. So then people are like saying things like I'll be really real like and because you're an older person and so like when we were like when I was a kid like the comedians the 90s comedians the black and white comedians they joked right like there's
Yeah.
white folk stuff and there's black folk stuff like you probably won't see a black person do this you'll probably just joke like they would make jokes about it but they were funny. because it was like, yeah, no, like whatever. Like I can think of like I'm making up a bit, but like, I can imagine like Martin Lawrence making a joke about like, you know, can you imagine like a white dude dying parasailing or something like, or a black dude dying parasailing or something like that? It's
Yeah,
like
right.
probably not. Like, so I think about that often, and the there's a lot of things that we grew up, we were told like you're as a black person or an Indian person or a Vietnamese person or a Muslim person, like we don't act that way. That's how white Americans act. Like or for example, like behind your
Yeah.
yeah, like and I could even say it vice versa. Like probably like we don't do that. Like that's like that's how they act. Like um, and there's many different examples of that. But I think the one that was Nana, and I love Nana. And I'm saying this because I have great respect for my elders and where we come from. And it's like this is just how it was. It's like, Nana was very Christian. She was not very free about sexuality. The narrative was that like, they would like us, I grew up in a white area, so they'd be like, "Oh, you guys like those white girls because you think they're fast." The idea was that white culture was much more sexualized than black culture when Nana was growing up. When Nana was growing up and when my mom was growing up. Not so much like post 50 Cent, but like back then. So today, like we talk about trans and LGBTQ and a lot of like differences about that. It's like if you go to black communities like Baltimore, like deep black communities, they don't hate trans, but they're just gonna be like, "What are you talking about? That sounds like something that's white. That sounds like something that's like not of like this culture. Like that's not from our people. That comes from a more elite people. That comes from a more
Mhm.
different." And then even the elders thing, like I kind of I might have brushed on this or I was thinking about this earlier. Like think about Eminem. I don't know if you listen to his music, but Eminem embodied like a F you mom. Like he did not like his mom, like over and over and over again. Like he would talk about his mom, and there'd be this trope that like white kids don't like their parents. Like they would cuss out their parents or they get in arguments with their parents. At least when I was a kid, like we would even see it. Like and I will back it up in my experience that like you would more likely see like a friend relationship more of like a friend relationship between the parents and the children than you would see like in typical black households. And so when you see a lot of like, so today, what I'm getting at is that like a lot of like the, F old people, like they don't know what they're talking about, like F old white men. Like I would never say that about black men. You know what I mean? Like if I was a white guy, I would never say that about black men. I'd be like, no, I love old black men. Like, no, like you're different from me. Well, but they're key. So all I'm saying is like not that you have to care, but be aware that sometimes some
Mhm.
of the changes in our culture that might have some resistance, or you might be like, well, why did they vote for Trump or this? Or like some people might. It's like no, it's because sometimes you think your allyship it's not really allyship. It's more so just an extension of progression in your own white culture or in your own culture that is then like since it's the dominant culture, it's kind of like seen as like in and so I think that's kind of like those are two things that kind of came to my mind, sort of like, division and sexuality, which I don't think we adequately address today because so many people are scared or offend the wrong person or whatever. But, anybody that knows me, I'm definitely not coming from that place. I'm just trying to share with you like how it was. Pre 2020, not like pre 2001, like America was a whole different place. So,
It was a whole different place. And that's why I think, like, it's fine to understand those differences, and I think it's important that we acknowledge those differences. Um, it doesn't make them okay.
yeah.
I get in a lot of trouble for this because I talk about, like, things that happened at different times, and not that they're okay because they happen, but also you get to understand where the culture was at the time.
Mm. Yep.
Um, and things like I know from personal experience, I'm just gonna give you an example that came up for me.
Yeah.
Um, I remember when my nieces and nephews, who are probably now within in their 20s,
Mm.
were talking about how it was inappropriate to be touched without permission.
Oh my goodness, me and my wife were talking about this.
They did not have an expectation that they would go into a bar and men
Mm,
would touch them.
mm, mm. Uh-oh.
That was not acceptable to them. It had never even occurred to me in my 20s that I could go into a bar without being touched.
Yeah.
Never occurred to me. It was just something I accepted. That's the acceptance of what life is, and if I wanna go out and hang out in a bar, my body's gonna be touched without my consent all the time. And so then when they said this to me,
Hmm.
and if they had told me an incident where, "Hey, I went into a bar and this guy grabbed my ass, and it was really upsetting," I had to really, really shift
I've never
my viewpoint because I love them and I want to, like, honor them so much. But I have to say, like, the first time I heard it, my reaction was like, "You're
No.
upset about what? Somebody grabbed your ass one time? Are you kidding me?" Like, do you even know how many times I've been inappropriately touched in my life? I can't it's not even something I even track or count, nor
Mhm,
would I even bother because it was so prevalent when I was growing up. In my 20s and 30s, there was no, not even a concept that that wasn't happening to women. And so that's a perfect example where I'm like, "No, it wasn't okay. I'm not saying it was okay. I'm just saying culturally at the time, I am not angry at the men who did that to me because the culture at the time said it was okay to both me and him. And there was not a discussion. I mean, yes, a little bit of tiny bits of discussion starting to happen. Obviously, when I was in my early 20s, I was traveling around the country educating people about acquaintance rape
mm,
because that was a conversation that was really, really, really a hot
mm,
topic. And when we went to some schools, people were throwing stuff at the stage at us,
mm.
booing us in schools, and literally throwing stuff at us on stage as
You're
we
saying
were.
what's acquaintance rate? What's that? I don't think I've usually heard that term before. Like, is it
Probably a
like
term
someone
that
that you're
nobody uses anymore because it's
yeah,
a dated term, but at the
and you
time, it was so revolutionary that people would say, "Most rapes happen by people you know."
yeah, 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 yeah,
Rape is not stranger rape. Most rape sometimes they call it date rape, but that's stupid because
yeah.
it doesn't always happen on a date. Um, but the whole idea that, like, most rapes happen by somebody you know. In 19
Mm,
in the early '90s, that was unheard of. People were not talking about it. And so we would go into these colleges and we would do this performance, and a lot of it was monologues explaining situations where the character had been raped, both men and women expressing situations. And the students, I would say overall, the students were cold, if not sometimes outright hostile,
mm,
because this wasn't something you talk about. And then after most of the shows, we offered time for women to come up and speak to us alone and in private so that they could express, and if they needed support and help, we could get them resources at their
mm,
college. And after each show, yes, we always had women who came forward and said, "You're the first person I told this to. But I feel safe, like, expressing this to you." But that was not something that was happening in the early '90s. So the fact that we were going around doing this was revolutionary. And that, like, I'm not kidding,
mm,
hostile. I mean,
yeah.
people booing us on stage when we were just, like, telling these horrible
You know
stories about being raped, and people were
yeah,
booing us.
and
But that's the environment we were in, right?
Scorpio is ruled by Mars and the moon, and it's like, you notice about these topics, it adds, like, so much emotion, but also, like like charge, like aggression. It's
Mhm.
like, it's like, do you hear what you're saying? Like, heresy, like, that's kinda like that energy,
Yeah.
whereas we have to do something about this, and, I mean, it's like, to me, it's like, me, a lot of other people, like, have all had the, I heard a word I like better. It's like you have your sexuality abused as a young age. Like, They know, and,
I
like,
love
anybody
that.
that has had that happen, it's not a usually it's not some random person, it might be, like, a family member, the proverbial uncle, right? Or just, like, that older male family member, or I guess maybe aunt, or, like, maybe not even old, but, like, an older kid who, like who, you know, I don't know, is trying to work out their, like, sexual desires on you because you're younger, and you just don't really know what's going on, and so
Or
I
vice
think
versa, you're trying to work out your sexual desires in a really messed up scenario.
yeah, yeah, and it's
So,
like, if
like,
you're
the problem with saying sexual abuse or saying that somebody consented, I love this that you're saying have your sexuality abused
Mhm.
because sometimes the nuanced part of it is that there had been some consent and yet there was still abuse that happened and
Well,
damage
yeah.
that was happening, right?
Yeah, I think
So, yes, I did kiss you. I did make out with you. And then my sexuality was abused because when I had a stopping point or I had a point that I was like, no, I don't want to go farther than this, then my sexuality was abused because the sexuality was there. I wanted to express myself sexually with this person. I wanted to be able to be safe enough or able to be sexual. And yet I did not have the safety or the right to say, that's as far as I wanna go. Now we've reached a point where and this whole thing of, like, so much pressure from men of, like
Hmm.
I mean, I would like to just punch people about blue balls. I mean, that makes me so irritated, that term. I'm like, "Fuck you and your blue balls." Like, "Come on, give me a break." Like, go masturbate if it's really that
Yeah,
hard. Like, come on, don't take that out on me. I did not hurt you. I'm not torturing you, you know, I'm not
yeah, that's
teasing you. I am saying that I want to express my sexuality, and then I got to a point where I no longer felt comfortable and had the right to say, "That's as far as I wanted to go." And I will tell you from my own personal experience, that was rarely respected.
yeah.
And so often I was pushed into situations where it went farther than I felt comfortable. And I'm not saying it was necessarily what would be classified as rape, but it was definitely my sexuality was abused, hands down.
Yeah, I'm
Again and again and again and again and again. And again, even the men who inflicted that on me, I do, I guess, have a little bit of a different perspective because I look at it culturally. And I know that it wasn't their intention to hurt me. It was also their confusion around sexuality.
yeah, like, like, I'll give you a great example, like, today, as in 2025, men are knowing what luteal phases of the period, follicular phase, ovulation, and, like, just that alone, I feel terrible about some of the positions I probably pushed women into myself throughout my own sexual, like, exploration, because you just kinda think women are like you, like, just because you're you, that's the only way that you have an example, right? And then, and then obviously, what are all the stories of girls saying no? Like, "Oh, I wanted to be with her. Oh, but then eventually he won me over because he was so charming and he did this and he showed up to my job." Like, I've seen so
And
many I've seen so many movies like that,
yeah,
right? I'm not saying it's
the
happening,
movies are terrible.
but that's the thing
Yeah.
is when you're a kid, you only have movies that tell you how adults act. You have your parents, which you also know is partly like, anybody who has parents, your parents are kinda partly crazy because you get to see the full scale of who they are. So then you also see everything else and you're like, "Oh, these are the examples." Like, yeah, women don't just say and then obviously all of the stereotypes, what are the stereotypes of women? Women are indecisive, right? And that, right? Like, oh, they don't, and I'm just saying this is, if I'm saying this, your father's generation heard this, right? And I'm just saying this is the culture of our people that we have to deal with, like, directly. And as you see it today, like, for example, like me, like, we're taught, like, as a man in our culture, it's like you can be so sexually, like, magnificent to a girl, like, she's just, no, like, you don't know what I can do to you. Like, there's kinda like that type of energy where it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, but once you get a taste of this, like, you won't
God,
wanna you heard stuff
that
like that.
literally has been said to me so many times, I can't
Oh,
even
yeah, but it's
yeah,
like, I
yeah,
didn't think that on my own. It's you hear it, you see it, and you're told
yeah,
it, period. Like,
yeah.
and this is, like, what I'm trying to say, it's like like, all the OGs, like, if I was Thomas Jefferson and I'm told that these guys are 3/5 of people and the reason why you're born and I'm Thomas Jefferson's dad, I have slaves because these aren't really people.
Mm-mm.
Like, how is my point of view gonna be any different? I have to then overcome that somehow, some way. So I think, like, I really appreciate that, and that's what Scorpio says, is like, "Bro, we live in a culture that has darkness and light, and all of those things influence our actions." And I think, like, sometimes we like to think like, "Oh," and especially in the yoga world, we can be so positive and so hoop-de-da that, and that, like, we don't always adequately address, like, the secrets and the depth of, like, the complexity of the human experience. I think, like, th I think it's a yoga teacher's job eventually to kind of deal with that and work that out. But, like, for me, I think that what you said something where it's like, you say no. I think there's also people, and you probably get this, there's 2 categories of people that say yes and call it, like, consider it abuse in retrospect. There's some people that are like, actually, I wanna go a little bit further than you. So, when I was a kid, like, as in 2012, I keep saying this, it was really, like, 2014 to Trump, late Obama Trump was when a lot of stuff switched. Like, I say a lot of things for the better, a lot of things for the worse. It's like some things for the better, some things for the worse, but just like what we're talking about here. And, like, back in the day, what it meant to be raped was, like, I said no over and over again. I was punching this dude, I was kicking this dude, and or he drugged me, or, like, he took advantage of me. That's what it was like when I was, like, in 10th grade. Then now I'm a sophomore, like, in college, and it's like, well, she didn't sign the consent forms. Actually, South Park made a joke about this. It was called, like,
Oh,
the
yeah.
PC. They made a bit, and it was like all the guys had to, like, get consent forms signed before they had sex with anybody. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, because girls themselves, like, when I was a kid, they would say, like, they like aggression. Like, some people will be like, "I like to be like, I like the aggression, I like the forcefulness." Then you can, Quentin can approach that woman that way. But if you approach a woman who does not like that way, you're gonna, like Quentin, you're gonna get smacked.
Yeah.
You're gonna get hit. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. A girl that I was talking to the first time I, like, kissed her, talked to her, like, whatever, I, like, grabbed her ass, right? Using this perfect example. Another girl I tried to do that to, did not like that. Did not like that again, never talked to me again. So, I think, like, it's good that men have been trained, like, "Hey, you can't," the old approach doesn't necessarily work, and the contract is shifting. But, like, to say that boys were evil or, like,
Yeah,
malintent or deprived,
yeah.
it's like, and I say this to my wife, and, like, we can maybe switch topics after this. It's like, and this is not a justification, but we live in the real world, and we live in a world where men have a stronger sex urge than women, like, for whatever reasons you wanna put out there. Maybe the lack of a menstrual cycle, maybe the continuous generation of sperm, maybe the testosterone, because, when women are ovulating, their testosterone peaks, and that's typically more when they wanna have sex. You can say there's different biological reasons. You can also say there's different cultural reasons, right? It's supportive for men.
I
Poly
was gonna
poly
say, I would counterpoint that to say that it's very cultural. Women have very, very strong sexual urges that are not okay. They're not
Well,
okay.
yeah,
And so
100%.
women are not allowed to be sexual, and we're not allowed to express ourselves that way. Still, we're not allowed to. And so there's this belief that men want sex more than women. That's not necessarily true. But
I don't
women traditionally have not had the safe space to express themselves sexually without the danger of it going farther than they felt comfortable or safe doing. And I'm not blaming the men for that either, because obviously it's confusing.
mm,
It's confusing for men, it's confusing for women, because we do not feel comfortable about sex in our
mm.
culture. I
It's a
mean,
shame.
it's amazing. We feel fine about violence.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
can
yeah,
balance it
literally.
up, but God forbid people are having sex. We don't wanna
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, like, that's how I got here in the first place, didn't you? Like, all of us got
Yeah.
here through sex, and I think, like, that even though and I guess what I'm saying is, like, I do think you can say it's cultural, but just being a man, you can see the men, and it's like we have, like, a baseline, but then, like, that guy, he's like me, I'm more of a relationship guy, right? That guy is more of, like, he's a rolling stone. He wants to have many, 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 many mates. Like, he doesn't feel as uncomfortable, and I think that might be it might be the same with women, but I'm just trying to adjust, like, the
It's just
reality.
I got some friends
Yeah.
who love some sex.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think
It's
that
like
there's this belief that women have had less sexual partners than men because women hide it more,
mm,
because it is very much judged if you've had a lot of sexual partners. I know plenty of women who have had sex with over 100 men, easily,
yeah,
easily.
yeah,
Why not? You know, in my generation that was starting to be okay, would they go out and say that publicly? Hell to the no. They're not going to admit that in public circles because what will happen to them? So
yeah,
it's not necessarily that we don't have sexual appetites, but we definitely hide them. And then, of course, you are right that hormones, particularly now, hormones can wreak a lot of havoc on people's sexualities, both men and women, because there's a lot of young men now that don't want to have sex either. Yeah, there's
yeah.
a lot of young men who are not interested
Ooh,
anymore in
this is the
sex, which
perfect
is
it's the perfect
crazy. 20-year-old
thi
old boys,
well, why would you
teenage
wanna
boys who are just like, nope,
I
not
mean,
interested. And the hormones, the ways that we're eating and our environments and stuff like that, really messing with our hormones.
and even, like, I heard okay, so I gotta mention this comedian because that's dope. So, her name is, like, Jordan Jensen. She was just on, like, Andrew Schultz Flagrant. She came up with a special, so she's kinda doing her rounds on the podcasts, and, she's raw, raw comedian, right? Just talk about all that kind of, but not sex, not just like sex, but just like she's really she would mend well in this conversation. Like her comedy special was about how she wanted to have sex with her dad, but she's talking about like how like when you're a young girl and your dad is the man, like legitimately the man, like her dad was like legitimately the dad that all the girls wanted to mess with, and he actually messed with one of her older sisters, like so she's like that, and that was and then she taught but she talked about rape, and she was like how her sister like legitimately got violently, and then when she got to college, all these girls were like, I didn't want to sleep with him, and what I was gonna get at earlier is I was like, sometimes girls say yes, quote unquote yes, but they're drunk and they don't really want to do it with the person, they regret it, or like or even or like what I was kind of saying earlier as a kid, like pre-10, like if you're in any situation where you feel like you're in a sexual situation with a person, like yeah, you can't really like technically consent, but you can also technically consent. Like you can say that's okay, like I don't care about that because you don't know any better, but that's not really consent. But then you can be ashamed of that in retrospect because you're like, well, the mind can play all sorts of tricks on you, but like
Well, there's a
something,
lot of things around pressure. You can be pressured
or you could be like,
and
why
then
didn't
later
you,
on be like, I didn't really have consent.
or feel like, why didn't you do it? And like, you, like maybe this is more of like just like a me approach, but it's like, I would, most of the times when I feel shame, it's more so, why didn't you act stronger? Like, not so like, because it's not like I don't see myself that way as someone to be abused or taken advantage of. It's more so I see myself as like a warrior to defend myself. Why didn't you defend yourself? And if you lose a fight defending yourself, then you lost a fight defending yourself. That you can't feel bad about that. Like you just lost the fight, fine. But I think there's a lot of
It can
shame
also
around.
sometimes, Quentin, I think, be like it's okay in the moment, like you're
Mm,
enjoying it.
yeah.
But then what happens after the fact
Hmm.
can change how you felt about the event,
And
the way
see,
the person handles it, or whether they go around and tell their friends, or whether or even they roll over and go to sleep and you now feel very used when you
mm,
thought it was a emotional or some kind of connection. So there's a lot of complications that go with this stuff.
yeah. And I think
We don't do
I
it very well as a culture, that's for sure.
not at all. And that's why it's like I feel like even what and I was thinking about this too. Scorpio also rules sex. Like it's the sign about sex.
Mm,
Usually, like
yeah.
the
Probably
stereotype
why
is
we're talking about it in this episode so
yeah,
much,
yeah, and
even though
how
we
sex
didn't intend to.
and like the nuances about it, and like it's I actually was having this like complicated feeling earlier. I'm like, what is sex really? Because it's like Then I started to think, like, is sex marriage? Like, is sex more than just, like, now we're doing this thing? Or maybe I should say, like, condomless sex, or maybe that's a different category. But, like, sex with a person, I would even say, like, especially, like, yeah, this one's not for kids. Yeah, like, when you, like, you know, as a male finish inside of a woman, or
Mhm.
as a when you, like, say, like, you finish on a man, like, is that real? Like, I think there's something deeper there. Like, I think, like, or I can feel a depth there, and obviously, in all the societies, most marriages aren't legit until, like, they're not consummated until you have sex. Like, sex is sort of that factor that, like, binds people. Um
Yeah, in many cultures for a very long time, and I'm not talking just white cultures, many
Yeah,
cultures,
all the yeah,
you
most
had to witness them having sex, like, people would literally sit there and watch,
yeah,
make
and
sure
I
that you
think
had sex before it was actually a legitimate marriage.
so, like, understanding sex, because it's like, I feel like and so there I feel like we get binded together by who we have sex with. I think there's, like, there's an interesting, like, thing there, like, you were even saying this, like, unless the guy was really brutal to you, like, unless he really did something bad, like, he's probably a little anointed, like, compared to just the random Joes. Even though the people that, like, even probably that person that had a sex with 100 people, that person they had sex with, even for that moment, that second, like, they have a little bit of a deeper connection with that person than other people. And the only thing I can think of is that mimics that is as animalistic or as raw as, like, fighting. It's like when you, like, wrestle with someone, like your play like, as a young boy, as your playmates, the people that you wrestle with and play with, or the people that you fight against, like, they are, I'm using the word anointed, but they're, like, elevated in your mind, and good or bad depending on the context. And so, like, if you have a positive memory of your mates, they're probably elevated, and, or you have the other side where a lot of women are like, "I hate men. I can't stand men. Like, F y'all. Like, you guys, I open myself up to you, and you break my heart over and over again." And I think, like, even in our society, we always, and this is, like, more of the gender stuff, but just in our society, it has always been gendered. And so they would always say, like, women are, the trope was that women could be more attached, like, through sex than a man could, right? That was, like, the trope. I don't know if it's true, but let's just say that it is. But either way, it's like we don't understand sex, like, in its entirety. We don't understand an orgasm fully. Like,
Mm-mm.
from a
No.
spiritual point of view, it's a very, like, powerful thing. And so like, even when we talk about sex, or we talk about um like, these nuances with sex, like, we're still binded together by our common, like, desire to have sex, or to have or to understand it, or to understand sexual pleasure, or to experience it. And so if we have the capacity to, like, that is an innate thing, and it does not make you evil. And I think that's the first thing where it's like, when I the reason why I'm saying it this way is because it's not a secret that, like, yoga culture doesn't have the same, like, clear parameters around sex, like, that, like, say, like, if you're from, like, a devout, like, Orthodox space does, or whatever. And, um, but what it does, like, what I think it does well is it explains, like, the power that is in sexual energy, and the power that's in, like, the Bindu, I believe, or just like in these certain areas, in these certain gates of your body, that, if it's not misused, allows you to create more peace within yourself and on earth. And so what I really feel like is that, like, within your own, since it's so complicated, it can't really be, like, even generalized. Like, I heard people talk about sex, like, we have 4 things, 4 categories. You have, like, sensual, which is this, you like to be touched, but then you have sexual, which is, like, touched on your sex organs, or, like, the typical porn thing. Then you have, like, energetic, which is, like, teasing or hovering over the body, or sort of like that type of energy. Then you have fetishes, which is
Mm.
typically taboo. And and, and then you can be a blend of all of them. Like, you can just be, like, a mixture of all of them. And so I thought that was illuminating, to where it's like, okay, look at yourself on this thing, and kinda see where you at are on that spectrum, but to realize, like, sexuality is a very complex thing, but first and foremost, it is the way that you got here. It's the way that all of us got here, and, like, respecting and having reverence for it as an act, I think, is, like, a step in the right direction, dependent independent of how many sexual partners you have, how many you wanna have,
Mhm.
if you're married or not, just kinda, like, taking each and every, like, sexual interaction as, like, communion and, something that isn't just, like, shouldn't be hidden or scared about even if it's, like, fetishy sex, like, you're dressed up as a dolphin, like, it should still, like it can still have that reverence infused in it as, like, "No, this is, like, a really beautiful thing." So, the reason why I was getting with the marriage thing is because it's like it seems to me that, like, without sort of that kind of understanding that, like, no, like, there is, like, an intricate tie that might be laced, like, with this person, an energetic tie that happens to the sexual action. That is, I feel like, is a strong, like, argument or, like, a point of view to be, like, more, like, controlled about who you have sex with. But not from a point of view, like, you're gonna go to hell or you're gonna get STDs, you're gonna get AIDS. But it's just like, no, like, sex can be approached with discipline, but not discipline to hate your desires, but discipline on how you use that energy, like, and, the last thing I wanna say is, like, when I was younger, I never understood this, but I think as I'm getting older, I do. It's like, when you're younger, it's like, you hear stories of, like, older couples, like, planning days to have sex or, like, you have a date night day, or it's like, this is, like, like, this is the day that, like and when you're young, you're like, "Oh my god," like, "I never wanna be like that," like, I wanna just be able to, like but I but
Oh
I
my
think as you
gosh.
get older, I think it kinda switches, rather, where the 20-year-old boy that always wants to do it, like, at a certain age, like, you get into a relationship where you kinda have to push yourself to because yeah. I think you get to a certain point where you not push yourself, like, negatively, but almost push yourself, like, to do a meditation practice, like, almost be like, "Hey, this is important and this is an important aspect of our life, like, it cannot be ignored, and it's not unholy, it's really, like, fundamental." And, like, um so I don't know, I just wanted to kinda put that in there where it's like, you can kinda switch it from an impulse thing that you do to where it's
Yeah.
like, plan it and you want it to be a beautiful, thoughtful, like, ceremony between you and that person or people that you choose to mate with.
Okay, let me see if I can remember all the things I wanna say. First of all, I love that
Yeah.
you brought that up because my father-in-law, who was quite a sexual being and really, uh, talked about sex, was very, sex-oriented for a very long time. It's very funny because me and my, husband laugh a lot because, one day they were talking about it, and my father-in-law said, and then honestly, these days, I'd rather just go eat an ice cream cone."
Yeah.
Like, all the
Honestly,
complications and all the things that go
honest
along with it, like, you're like, I would actually gain more pleasure just from eating an ice cream cone right now.
so true.
So I do think that honestly that does change for people a lot, and it doesn't change for everybody, but, you know, um, my parents and grandparents have always been really open about sex. They talk about sex. It is a well-known fact that my parents at 80 still have sex.
Mm.
My grandparents, like, my grandfather was 90 and would tell my grandma to come over and sit on his lap, like,
Yeah.
uh, it's very I mean, that was very much part of the way I was brought up, but it also my siblings and I were like, "Wow, you really didn't, like, prepare us for
New
what the
York.
general population is going through."
Yeah. Yeah.
So when our
Yeah.
marriages hit, like, 50s and all of a sudden we were like, "Oh my god, I would rather" we'd all
Mhm.
rather take a nap than have sex.
Mhm.
My parents didn't prepare me for that because my parents were just like, "Oh, we still are so, like, we're having sex all the time," and we're all like, "What?"
How?
Oh. So,
Yeah.
I think there's that. I also wanna give a shout out because I think, like, the very fact that you and I are able to talk about sex so openly, with each other, it's probably because we're surrounded by people who also allow us to talk about this openly, and so I have 3 girlfriends who I've had since, we've been together since our early 20s. And we've always had very open, honest conversations about sex, and I really appreciate them for that. One of them actually is a writer of romance novels. I say that
Mhm.
in quotations. I'm saying that in quotations for those of
Yeah,
you who
I
can't
know what
see.
you mean.
So my best friend, Adriana Anders, she writes very, very graphic
Yeah.
uh, novels that have to do a lot with, they go to, like, these special camps in the novels and have very graphic experiences. Some of them I love her writing. I think she's a brilliant writer, and sometimes I'm like, "Woo, that was a little much even for me." Wow. I think I just got a whole education there that I did not know that I needed. But I
Love that.
really appreciate that because, it's a testimony to, again, like, how great my friendships are, that the reason why I am so open and I speak about this so openly is because I have had the safety of 30 years of women that have encouraged me and allowed me to speak openly. And then about the marriage thing, Swami Satchidananda, he really used to emphasize the fact that the reason why you want to be mindful about who you're having sex with is because it is a transfer of energy.
Mm,
You are literally merging those
mm,
energies,
yeah,
and the chakras are right there and all that energy is
mm,
intertwining, and that you are creating like cords between you, energetic cords that are not easily severed.
yeah,
And so that's really important to be mindful of how you're using those energies and who you're using that energy with.
mm.
I have not always been mindful, even in spite of
Lord knows, neither am I. Yeah.
his suggestions. And so I really recognize that, um, it's much better when you're mindful and you are using it in a way that is uh, mindful and respectful of those energies, that you are consciously, you're not just thinking that you're just doing a mechanical action with your body. There are energies that are going to intermingle whether you want it or not. I mean, that's just the nature of the chakras and how the energies work. Then I just want to say, one of the complications with sex so much is virginity. We can't have a conversation about sex without talking about virginity
Maybe.
and the absolute stupidity of this ridiculous, made up bullshit. And excuse my language, but bullshit idea of virginity. Virginity does not exist. It is not a physical thing. It shouldn't even be a conversation. The definition of virginity is absurd and stupid. And I want to reiterate this again and again. There is no such thing as physical virginity. Women are all built different. Some of them do have this hymen. Majority of us do not, or it's a thing that maybe goes away when we're little baby girls. And the idea that for centuries and centuries and centuries, we have been so stuck on these ideas of virginity, it pisses me off to no end.
Mm,
Because we, men and women, all and society are putting huge amounts of weight on people about losing your virginity. What the frickety frack fuck is that? You don't
mm,
lose your virginity. There is no virginity to lose. A woman just chooses to interact with a man, and a man chooses to be with a woman, and that's all there is. There's no thing. And then you're like, what is virginity? Like penetration? Penetration of what? Right? Is oral sex? Did you lose your virginity then?
yeah, I know
No,
a
because
couple of
that's not the technical definition of penetration. If I use my fingers, did I lose my virginity? If I use my fingers, if you use your fingers on me, did I just lose my virginity? It's such unbelievable bullshit. I just wish we could strike this whole idea and word off the face of the planet, and we would probably all be much better. So forgive me for my virginity rant, but
no,
as you can see, I feel really
I love that.
passionate about it, and it makes me really angry that we still live in a world in 2025 where it is even a word in our dictionary and definitions of sex. It's just stupid.
Yeah, and I mean, anybody who's had sex, like, with multiple partners knows that a girl, like, shoot, like, can have her hymen break multiple times. Like, it's and all like, to the counter is true. It's like, yeah, she could have, like, hypothetically speaking, this hypothetical idea of what it means to be a virgin, you know, is even unprovable by her own little standard. And I think, like, when I was it's funny because in the Ramayana, we started off mentioning that, and it mentions a lot of like ancient culture and how like the women would view things, and I think they viewed it as chastity or which is different than virginity, but how I'll define it is just like kind of like guarding the energies, like guarding the energies, or like making sure that what's interact. And I love how you transferred it to energies, because I think having sex with that understanding, or engaging in sexual acts with that understanding, or any type of like not just intercourse, but just any type of sexual act, or just kissing or just touching another person, when you're heart to heart, when your solar plexus to solar plexus, when you're like, you know, when you're touching, right? You y Your energies are being exchanged, even if it's non-sexually. That's why I think fighting gives that energy too. But I
Right.
think even when you're like, when you're touching, hugging, interacting, and that is a serious thing, like, period. I think, like, it's just like things can touch our spirit like things touch our body, and everything that touches us isn't clean, like, for lack of a better word, and
Well, and there's
something.
a lot of monks that won't touch, right? For that very reason. A
Yeah,
monk
or
will
they'll hug
not
like
hug.
this.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
won't hug because they're like, "No, that's an exchange of energy that I have not agreed to have anymore in my life."
In our community, like, I have dreads, or, like, I don't really do my dreads that often, but, like, folks that do their dreads and do their hair often, you hear the trope, like, you can't just have any girl touching your crown. Like, you gotta have, like, your mom, your sister, your girl, or, like, your homegirl, or, like, someone you really trust, but it can't just
Yeah.
be anybody touching your crown. Um, and
So, that's so powerful and so true. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go on a tangent because you said
please.
that. But when you're talking about, like, energies, I was a hairdresser for a long time,
Mm,
and
mm,
it is a weird relationship to have with people. Because who is allowed to touch your head and
mm,
touch your crown other than people who are intimate with you? And
mm,
yet here you go in and you're allowing this stranger, and the thing is everybody knows that people have weird relationships with their hairdressers, in the sense that, like, they tell us all kinds of stuff that really is probably inappropriate, and really we don't need to know about them, considering I'm just doing a transaction with you.
oh.
But I have a true belief that it's a very intimate thing. Who else would you would not it's a certain amount of safety and intimacy that happens when you allow someone to touch your crown, and then that opens up this energetic thing where all of a sudden people are telling me I've sat down in a chair with someone, I did not even know them, and next thing they know, they're telling me about sexual abuse as a child
Yeah.
that they've never told anyone in their life, and they're telling me in this moment, and I'm like, "Oh my god, what am I supposed to do with this information? Like, what just
You
happened?"
want a discount? No, I'm
I
playing.
was just like, because often you're just like, "I'm in hair cuttery just cutting your hair, and you just told me you were, like, sexually abused as a kid." I'm not prepared for that.
100%. Oh
I
my goodness.
became prepared, and I did a lot of preparation, but there's a lot of people who are not prepared for that, but, like, that crown is no joke, Quentin, and I have a strong belief in that, and I think, like, yeah, be mindful of who touches your crown, because 'cause you're
100%.
gonna end up sharing and saying a lot of intimate things you may not be intending.
Honestly, like me, like, it's so crazy that you bring this up, because, like, run it back to culture, like, it's no secret that, like, black men and getting haircuts is like this, like, it's a very huge part of our culture, and the dexterity of our hair, and just, like, even, like, the symbolism of having dreadlocks, or being able to grow dreadlocks naturally, things like this. And, like, is like a common thing. Men are loyal to their barber. It's like there's so many jokes about, like, going to another barber, and your barber, and you come back to your barber, and there's jokes like the barber's like, "Who did
Yeah.
you cheating
Who
on me,
touched your
bro?
hair?
Cheating on me?" And, like, I will only go to Tony, like, part of the reason why I'd also, like, I wanna have grow my hair out, but another reason is, like, Tony's in Virginia. Like, I went to Tony for, like, 12 years straight. He's calming, like, and
It's not just
peaceful.
barbers, it's hairdressers too.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
had
yeah,
people
yeah.
who left the country and would not get their hair touched, and they till they came back to me.
Isn't that
They'd go
crazy?
2 years without getting their hair cut because they did not feel safe to have anybody else touch them in that way.
So, I think the last topic I wanted to say was, um, some more proactive advice. Like, we've been talking about sex, you might as well just keep talking about it. Like, there's all these different tools that we can do to increase our intimacy outside of sex. I think the energy exchange is, like, can be the focus, because I think as a man who has struggled with you could say attachment to sexual pleasure, like, you really get a lot of the pleasure from the experience, not just the ejaculation. And I think, like, or I can't speak for all women, but I'm assuming something similar. And rather focus on that energy exchange, like the cuddling, the experience, the communicating, like the heart opening, engaging these different things, and realizing that, like, that when you emphasize all of, like, were you saying the energy centers, all the other energy centers, you get really a much more powerful sexual experience, orgasm, however you wanna look at it when it comes. But it's not just about, like, like, it's not just about the sacral center, like, the position that comes to mind is doggy. It's very, like, sacral, just or sacral to root, root to root, like, it's not engaging the being. But then you have, like, something like missionary, or just, like, something where you're holding each other and you're able to be close to each other and touch each other. And so, anyways, what I wanted to say was, like, just for me, I find yoga itself helps with my sexual life. It helps with my sexual moderation. It helps with my attachment to sexual pleasure. It helps with all of those things. Like, you talk about Kriya yoga, people do Kundalini yoga, these different breath work practices, different tools that you can use to help essentially, and even postures help divert just sexual or just attention from your sexual center. And so one that I really like doing, because I think, like, it's weird, but I feel like I'm here. Like, when you think of yourself, like, they call it the third eye, the seat of consciousness. So what I love to do with Safa, two things I love to do with Safa is just to try to just stare at each other. Like, you're looking at,
Mhm.
just stare. We always end up crying tears of joy every single time. Even right now, I'm getting teary. And then kissing. When you kiss, well, a lot of us can get into a habit of just, like, but when you're dating, it's like, it's all like that, you know? So if you are gonna pet,
If you're not watching him, that was really fun to to watch if you're just listening in. I wish you could have seen Quentin's face just then.
and if it's if you're like, if it's a setting where it's a lip on lip setting, hold it for at least 6 seconds, and, like, we like to same good advice with breathing too, breathing at a 6-second pace, but just doing a full inhale, full exhale together, or just, even if you're not kissing, holding, but just engaging with each other longer than, like, you know, um, I feel like has done wonders. And then also we try to just make out more, to be more, like, in that space of, like, the novelty, but, like, you've been married, or, married folk, like, all of these things, it's just like, a lot of these things, they need to be attended to. And then I guess I'll just say the third thing with yoga, kind of the most obvious thing, is just, like, the flexibility, the stamina, trying to detoxify, but also have a different relationship with your body. Like, a lot of us have image issues. Men might not feel strong enough, or might be feel too small, for example, or women might feel like overweight, or certain things going on that they just don't feel sexy. So yoga just I found through my yoga practice and meditation practice, and if you kinda meditate on sex, I like to do, like, I have the perfect sex life. Like, how many of
Mm,
us, like, think we don't, or wish it was different, and, guys, I see it all over my timeline, like, "It's been 2 months, like, I'm leaving," like, like, or whatever, and but be like, "Oh, this is the sex life for me, I have the perfect sex life," and I found oftentimes whenever that happens, like, that experience that I'm looking for, that I feel like is fulfilling, comes much
mhm.
faster than feeling like, "Oh, this isn't the person, this isn't right, why are we doing this? Isn't if I could, don't you know, how cute I am, da 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 da," all these types of thoughts that people have that lead to adultery, and or leaving your partner, or cheating, or whatever. But just monitoring over and over again, I have the perfect sex life, or I'm sexually healthy, or these types of things, they can help. I've found help, like, shift your perspective, at least, on your sex life. And shoot, I gotta have a fourth one just to close it. I love the what has really stepped my sex life up, and what I mean by that is my perception of it. Like, compared to when I was 20, I'm definitely not having as much sex as then. But I think that sex is like, it's like eating McDonald's. It's like it's not really like, it was a great person, it might be great, it may taste good, but it wasn't as much heart in it.
Yeah.
But what I found is, like, that sex life is of service. Like, um, you know, I'm in service to my wife. I think it's so easy to get caught up in, "I wanna feel good. I want this spot to feel good. Hit this touch here. Do this, do that. I want you to be like this, move like that, look like this so that I can enjoy this more." Rather than being like, "No, like, my entire sexual energy, like, I'm devoting." If you're married, it's easy to do it long term, but even if it's a partner, short term or in this moment, being like, I'm devoting my sexuality, my sexual energy, to be in service to please you. And and then, that's when you start pulling all the tricks out your bag. That's when you try to start doing more stuff to really make it a full experience rather than like, I just want to do my 6 pumps and I'm out of here. Um, yeah. That's what I have to say on advice to have a better, more fulfilling sex life.
Yeah, I think I would just share, I think it would be weird that we had this whole entire, episode without mentioning the word tantra.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
kinda glad that we had a whole episode where we
Yep.
didn't mention the word tantra, because
Yeah.
I think that tantra is really misunderstood, especially in Western contexts, what they've done and taken tantra and made it mean things that really it's not initially supposed to mean. It's much more about, like you said, the energies, and it's not just about sex, it's about moving energy through you, and then finding ways to connect those energies with the partner, that can be really powerful. So I think, again, think about, like, if you are familiar with your chakras when you are having intimacy with someone, think about those chakras and how those energies are connecting and merging and touching. And even if you want to explore that, it's really interesting with your partner to just be like, okay, what happens with, like, our third or fourth chakra? What happens if we focus on that as opposed to just the first or the second, right? What happens if we focus on, like, the sixth chakra? We just sit there and put our foreheads together. Like, how many cultures are there this thing of putting your forehead
Oh,
together to
it feels
merge
so
that
good.
energy, right?
We do
So
that
I
all the
think
time.
that it's so good to explore these different energies, just even why do we tilt our necks and kiss that throat chakra and merge that throat chakra with each other. So I think you can consciously explore these things. Um, and then also, like you were saying, a lot of the postures were really meant, and the bandhas too, like, were meant to hold energies so that you could then have the energy like build up in you and gain strength by holding the energy. And so the locks that we do in the yogic practice, so many of those locks are meant for holding of energy. And so the poses also can be very powerful for that. And some of the poses were even designed for, specifically with young men in mind, knowing that they would have a lot of excess sexual energy, and how to sort of um, be able to hold and move that sexual energy in a way that did not necessarily need to be expressed in sexual action.
Yeah.
So yoga and sex is very intersected.
Yes.
Um, and I think it's always interesting, particularly in my own organization and upbringing, how those two things were, um, for the majority of my organization, really not discussed and talked about. And really, there was a lot of narrow tried to
Yeah.
control those energies in a way that just you can't stamp down those energies. They're powerful creation energies. Sex is a creation energy.
Yeah.
Through sex, we create.
Yes.
We literally create people, right?
Yes.
Through those energies in our bodies. So I think that's good to remember that it has a lot of nuances. Yoga absolutely has lots to share around these energies, but I think, as always, you and I like to have some really just easy, ways you can just integrate it right away and, uh, move that into your daily practices. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I love this topic. Thank you. I know it was totally not where we started, which is often what happens. But super excited that Scorpio brought us into this conversation. And I think it's one that's really fun to talk about. And probably we will have more episodes, because obviously it is a very human part of life and a complicated part. And a necessary part. So I'm really grateful for the conversation and grateful to you for
Yeah,
being so open and willing to talk very candidly about your experience and everything. So thank you.
absolutely. Well, thank you for your time. Till next time.
Absolutely. And thank you to all of you. Have a beautiful week or whatever till we see you, time until we see you and hear from you again. Om.
Peace.